Welcome to another episode of Mr. Therapist and the Counselor Podcast. We are your guide towards personal recovery, whether you're dealing with an addiction, a mental health issue, or you're just trying to figure life out. We empower your growth through candid conversations and demystifying the process of therapy. And today, we have a special guest, Alex Flores, reflective as fuck. Reflective AF.
Reflective AF.
Yeah.
It's reflective Alex Flores, guys. It's not as fuck. It's Alex Flores.
But he is reflective as fuck.
No, it's as fuck. It took me 36 years to realize that Alex Flores is as fuck. Fucking 36 years, dude. No, I want to say 39 years. My bad. 39 fucking years.
Damn, that's crazy. My name is Manny Romero. Jesse O.
Let's go.
So, how did you reflective? Thanks for joining us.
Whoa! How was the drive down? We always do this. Come on, man.
Can I call you reflective?
Yeah, fuck yeah. It's like my wrestler name. Yeah, I come out with fucking dude.
I fucking love that.
What's your wrestler name?
My,
you don't have one?
Rey Mysterio.
Dude, that's terrible.
I'm pretty sure there's someone that took
dude.
that name. I'm not sure though.
Mine was Just-tastic.
Just-tastic?
Dude, you put thought into that.
Yeah, I did.
You put thought into that.
And my moniker was the shit.
Damn.
I am the shit.
You walk around with toilet paper?
Yeah, the gimmick failed poorly. But go ahead. You were saying.
Yeah, I was saying. Thanks for coming on, man.
You're
driving in from
Walnut, California. So right outside of LA.
San Clemente. Took you probably like an hour and a half.
Yeah, about an hour. Not too bad, man. It was a nice drive.
Very cool. I can call you reflective. I think I want to go back to this wrestling name thing. Could I be Mr. Therapist as a wrestler?
Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah?
You're about to fucking put some beat downs and some mental
people
health,
walk down the ring and just talk sometimes, right? Like...
You're gonna fucking put them on the couch, dude. Fucking bam.
Yeah.
I'm worried though. Part of it though is like your gimmick is like, do you put people to sleep? But that's your finishing move.
No, we go deep.
You inflict trauma to uncover theirs.
Yeah.
This is your wrestling, right?
Yeah.
This is not. You said you just went deep.
We go deep. Yeah.
Okay.
He's a masseuse on the side.
Yeah. Hey, Rikishi did it. Yeah, he go deep into the spaces with his butt.
Dude. Fucking a memory I totally forgot I had.
Yeah.
Rikishi, yeah, dude.
Yeah. That ass up, that.
Yeah. That's some pink eye, right? That was before that one reference of pink eye. Yeah. You know what reference I'm talking about? I don't know how old. Oh, you probably know, right? From Hangover. That's how you get pink eye.
No.
Or is that from Knocked
Up, maybe.
Yeah, everybody's like farting in the pillow, right?
Yeah, I think we're supposed to be talking about mental health, guys.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
I thought this was Pink Eye Awareness Month, right? Wasn't it? No.
Close, but no. So, Alex, you're coming on. So, if you talk a little bit about like what you're doing, what you got going, like what, yeah. You're in the mental health field, right?
Yes, I work in the mental health field. So my story is pretty long, and I don't want to share all of it because I'll be here all day. But I work with fathers and parents. I'm a trauma-informed fatherhood coach. I coach parents to identify their core values and expand their reflective capacity to build tools to better get to know themselves, regulate their emotions, understand what's going on somatically in their body so that they can choose to show up different for their parent or for their children and families. And a lot of the parents I work with have histories of trauma. And, like I have CPTSD, or I'm working through those symptoms, right? I've done my own mental health work. I've worked in this field for 10 plus years. I've worked in early childhood education. I have a master's degree in early childhood education, and I focused on trauma and its effects on child development. I've worked for programs with families in crisis. I've done this work for 10 years where I've put everything into it working in nonprofits. Yeah. And at some point I just really got tired of the nonprofit system. I was fighting a fight that was just leaving me burnt out. Like I just couldn't do it anymore. And then last year in September 2022, I got laid off and I spent 3 months looking for work. And all of the job descriptions I read, I was like, I'm not going to go into this nonprofit and fucking work on this shitty ass program that has me overworked and get paid peanuts. Yeah. And then I just decided to launch Reflective AF and go all in and really take all of the stuff I've learned over the 10 years of my career supporting families in many different ways, through the classroom, through home visiting programs, through parent groups, all kinds of stuff that I learned all through a trauma-informed lens for the past 10 years, and be myself and not have to worry about like the systems that kind of held me back in those jobs, right? Yeah. So now I've launched Reflective AF. I coach parents and fathers, and I support them through their healing journey. Families that are, parents that want to break the cycle. They want to break that cycle of abuse, break those toxic cycles. And a lot of the parents I work with are in the middle of unpeeling those layers. And when you unpeel those layers of trauma, and you choose to show up different for your children, it can get pretty heavy, right? And a lot of the work I've done professionally and educationally, a lot of the stuff I've learned, and the work I've done on myself, man. Like I've done therapy for 15 years off and on, and I've been in the field for 10 years. I've done all these things. I've gone to IOPs, intensive outpatient programs, where I've sat for 3 weeks with groups, and I've done this stuff. And the moment I decided to like break those cycles for my daughter, I had this shift, and that shift was like, okay, I understand that I can support parents by just letting them know they're seen and then validate their experience, man. A lot of parents are struggling and they think they're alone, and by showing up and validating and seeing the parents where they're at and supporting them through it and letting them know they're not alone in how they feel, it's a powerful thing. And cool, I can't do that at a nonprofit with the fucking weak ass parenting group where I just got to get them to check a little box and turn in a paper by the end of the night. Like it doesn't work that way, at least for me. So that's Reflective AF,
like a mandated program. People don't
exactly,
want to be
dude.
There, right?
Exactly. You know what's up, man. And I just couldn't do it anymore. So Reflective AF was born, and I get to work with amazing parents now.
You have a lot of experience. It sounds like, as supporting people in the mental health field, and but also as a client. You said you did some IOP stuff. But one of the questions we like to ask is why parents? Like, why parents with trauma? And you've probably seen a lot of stuff, so maybe there's something there. But I don't know if there's a reason or a moment where you're like, you know what, this is what I want to like do.
I wanted to ask too, even he said, like, you'd mentioned getting laid off, right? Yep. You'd been doing this for years and years and years, but you never ultimately make the change. What was that moment, though? What was like that turning point where you said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to choose this path? Because there's a lot of us that think about doing things, but we don't take action.
Yes.
We sit and we sit and we sit, and we'll sit for years and years and years, as we kind of talked about out there, right? So what was the final, like the moment I said, I can do this. I'm going to take that risk.
It was not as easy as just an overnight shift. Back in 2020, February 2020, COVID started happening, right? And I just entered an IOP. I was going through a really tough time, having suicidal ideations. I've had suicidal ideations my whole life. As far as I can remember, the first time I attempted, I was 8 years old. So I was 8 years old. I was 8 years old. And I remember it, and I remember a lot of the childhood trauma I experienced. Very vividly. I wasn't the type of person that ignored it. I remember. I'm like, fuck, why do I remember it? I remember all of it. So I think when I had this mental breakdown, I went to an IOP for 3 months, and it was like 6 hours a day, or 6 hours a day for like 5 days a week. So it was a pretty intense program. I got introduced to breath work, and it was at that point in my healing journey, I was seeing therapists, I was reading books, I was doing the work, but I was doing the work from up here. I was doing the work from all up here, and I wasn't allowing myself to feel it. And when I started to feel it, it started to kind of hurt. Not kind of, like hurt a lot. And the reason I was able to kind of connect to out of my brain, out of intellectualizing my trauma, my situation, was through breath work. So through the IOP, I was introduced to breath work, and that really embodied me. And then I was able to learn how to feel my feelings in my body. And then I was able to get essentially that jump 3 years later, after daily breath work. I had an understanding of my feelings, like the emotions that come up when I'm fearful of the unknown. Yeah. I know they can't kill me, so I go anyways. And I've been doing that for 9 months, and it works out, man. It's a pretty amazing thing to do when you have that control of your breath, where you feel the tension, like, oh, this is scary. It's outside of the norm. It's out of the pattern that I'm stuck in, the pattern that I'm so aware of, but I want to get out of it, but I can't. Because the fear, right? So through breathwork for 3 years, because February 2020, I started doing breathwork, and I do it daily ever since. I've learned how to feel my feelings somatically in my body, to the point where the fear of holding me back of doing the thing, right? Like saying fuck the 9 to 5, I'm going to go hustle, and I'm going to sell my offers to the internet and to people and parents and shit. That's a big ass fucking change. There's a lot of uncertainty. I've worked for 10 years for nonprofits, 15 years. And it was always a steady paycheck. It was always bullshit. It was always burnout. It was always fucking systems that hold you back. And now that I'm doing this, I have the ability to expand in any direction I want. And it's scary. And it feels weird. And I know that's not going to kill me. And if I keep doing that, it actually gets pretty easy.
Can I ask, just because for people that don't know what breathworks is, and I'm not. Sounds like you've got the method down,
Mm-hmm.
and you're not. Let's say you're not. Couldn't be trained in breathworks, but could you explain like just kind of what breathworks is to somebody who's just, just a small. You don't have to go in full detail, but like,
Yeah.
how would you explain breathworks?
So for me, breathwork has been a active form of meditation. So before I would meditate, before I was able to sit and actually meditate and do breathwork, I was the type of person to be like, we're going to meditate. And I'm like, this fucking shit. I'm just sitting here. It's like, when is it over? Hurry up. I was that type of person. And breathwork showed me how to meditate because we're focusing on breath. So when you're sitting there, instead of just trying to quiet your mind and sit there all fucking zen, you're breathing. You're breathing in with your diaphragm into your belly, into your chest, and that's the breath that I learned. And that breath is very activating. And when I experience it, as it's activating, kind of oxygenating my blood. It's giving me a physical sensation. And the very first time I did it, it induced a panic attack. And I know what panic attacks are. I've had panic attacks. I've cried through panic attacks. But at that point, I was like, holy shit, it's a panic attack, but I'm in control with my breath. And that was fucking game over, dude. It was just, I've been doing breathwork ever since, and that's what breathwork is like for me. I coach men through it, and I help them develop their own process, and it's a very intuitive process that's guided through understanding of certain patterns of breath. But the power of breathwork that can be is once you do that every day, you have that ability to tap into regulating your nervous system just through a couple of breaths. So that when you show up, when you go, oh fuck, today I'm not just clocking in and clocking out, that I'm fucking grinding to make that money, and it's not even a grind anymore because I'm chilling, man. So I'm only going in the way that feels good, and when I do that, it works, and that's because anywhere I'm at, I'm able to regulate. I'm able to co-regulate. If I'm with people, I'm not all antsy. I'm not putting off this energy, and that's all through breath.
So the breath work gave you an opportunity to almost know that you're in control.
Yes, yeah, definitely, man.
Like I can control my breath through anything I can put myself through, and like this is sort of like a safety for me. Like that's
it's finding the safety within myself, and like growing up, I don't think I've ever experienced safety from in utero. My mom was a victim of domestic violence while I was in her stomach, and I remember hearing these stories that she would tell me as a child. I don't know why. I mean, trauma. That's why she told me this shit, right? But like I remember hearing these stories, and I remember seeing the violence, and so I never had a safe space. And it's funny because I ended up in a career helping families. I ended up in a career helping children, and now when I do what I do, it's literally, it can be as simply broken down to, I just want parents to stop beating their fucking kids, dude. And because I know those parents are not necessarily bad people, they're just people that are suffering trauma, and they're in their own pain and suffering. And if we can get those parents that have those, I want to just wring this fucking kid's neck, but don't do it because they want to change, but they're not acting out, but they feel so guilty in their head. They're like, why do I feel this way? I should love my kid more and not be this way. That's a spiral, dude. And parents could totally spiral on that shit and just be stuck. And I support parents through that because I wish my mom had that support, and I wish I had that support for the first 3 years of my daughter's life where I was figuring this parenting thing out, saying I know every single thing I need to do as a perfect dad up here. My brain's got it. I know what to do. I've got the degrees in this shit. I teach classes in this shit. But when I showed up for my daughter, it was different. It was disconnected because my body was reacting in ways that made sense to my traumatic past. I see a threat, I get tense, I react. So my breath stops that.
Let's talk about like that a little bit, like the what is it, corporal punishment? Is that what you call it? Like the using, physical, like hitting your kids.
Sounds horrible. Corporal punishment, because it is horrible. It is horrible.
I was going to ask you, do you
man.
have time? Like, do you have time? Do you have like parents who like it's hard for them to accept that? Because I know in talking to, in knowing my own family, talking to my family members, and even my own beliefs, becoming a parent, and like a lot of times there's this idea around like kids need punishment. It's like kids need that hard hand, that heavy hand to be disciplined, to be respectful, to be taught respect, to control, essentially, right? And like and there's this idea that control is healthy in some way, with like I would say Latino communities, like very traditional upbringings, you know what I mean? It's almost like if my kid is like, if they're a good kid, if they sit down, do everything they're supposed to do, listen to me all the time, I'm raising a good kid, you know?
Yeah, man.
I still, from my family, I'll get like positive reinforcement. Like, hey, your daughter really listens to you. She's really easy. And like, it's like reinforced in even words, right? Like, and a part of me feels proud of it, but then I'm like, a part of me knows that like, oh, that's bullshit too, right? It's just, but do you get like a pushback from parents sometimes of like having that belief system still, or?
I did a lot when I worked in the nonprofits. Okay. I did a lot, and I worked in El Monte, which is predominantly Latino, a very rich culture, and I worked in low income communities, and I got to know the community pretty good. And the families I worked with would often say like, "That's white people shit," like straight up, "That's white people shit, man." No, you got to make sure your kids listen to you, and I understand why, because when you grow up brown, you have to listen. It's not a choice. Like when I grew up, my parents told me I was going to end up dead or in jail if I didn't change. So my experience as a son of immigrants, I know I look white and I got this privilege, but my parents were brown immigrants. So I saw them suffering, and they had their fear of, if he doesn't change, he's going to end up as a cholo on the streets. My mom, you're going to be an estatistic. So you think about what's programming into the reason why they're parenting.
Yeah.
And you look at a more affluent parent that's like, you can be anything. You can be a veterinarian. You can be the president. You're not going to be a cholo today. You better not fuck up today. Because if you go out there and become a cholo, that's the messaging that some of these parents are having from a fear place of like, my kid must listen to me or else. And that comes from, I don't know if you guys want to get all into colonization and stuff, and then call it like, it's like that comes from such a mindset of us assimilating to a culture, right, of this dominance and fear. And I coach parents in nonprofits. When I worked with parents, I got that a lot because they didn't understand, because they're still in survival. They're still like, nah, I have to make sure my kid doesn't end up like his cousins.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do? You're going to smack that motherfucker before he ends up like his cousins. And what happens to that child? I'm not worthy of being loved.
Yeah.
I'm going to go get love from my homies. Right. And that's I got that because I worked in a neighborhood that was like that. Working with the parents, I've been reaching out on my, through my Reflective AF platform. I have parents that are ready to do the work. I have parents that come and they're like, I don't want to be screaming at my kids anymore. I don't want to just be like, you fucking idiot, and then be like, why did I say that to my teenage son? Like, what the fuck? And in that is the spiral. In that is like, I want to do better, but it hurts me, right? And like, my mom used to beat me. It hurts me more than it hurts you. There's some truth to that, but let's not beat your fucking kid. Take that hurt and don't hurt others. Process that shit. So I don't get pushback from the parents that are reaching out to me, because my content that I put out there and my marketing is really geared towards those parents that are in it, right? Like I've worked with men that were in their bathtub ready to kill themselves. I've worked with men that are, very successful lawyers that are just making little mistakes here and there, and they want to unpack a little bit of here, and we go. It's something for parents that are willing to do this work, because this work is not easy. So pushback, no. I really work in a trauma-informed way, so that's kind of where my professional background comes from, is I'm able to guide them through really tough times, and when they start to make these realizations, once you see something, you can't unsee it.
Yeah.
Once I tell someone like, hey, let's reflect on this point, and why do you think this is coming up for you? And then they go, oh, my mom did it this way. And then it's like, okay, now you have that piece of information, and let's reflect and see how we can use that to show up differently for our children.
Yeah.
And that's where I think parents are really open to learning, rather than like, nah, man, you got to hit your kid. Because I'm helping them get to their realizations, rather than, let me tell you statistically, if you hit your kid, this, that, and the other happens. Yeah. No, dude. Look around you. Look around you. I don't need to prove anything. Just look around and make your own assumptions and conclusions based on seeing what's really in front of you.
Yeah, that's powerful, man. And we come from the recovery background, substance use recovery, and something that people say that aligns with what you just said, it kind of ruins it for them, is it's almost like once you go to treatment, it ruins using for you, because then you can't use peacefully. Like now you know the damage it does for you, and so like
planting the
seed.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, I wanted to bring up something that you brought up podcast. We started to talk about like the parenting thing, right? And like I made the reference of your daughter, and she was doing the jiu-jitsu classes.
Nice.
And you had mentioned kind of, do you want to talk about that at all? Do you remember what I'm talking about? Please tell me.
Can you call it out? Because there's two things I'm remembering, so I don't know which one.
What are the two? Throw them out.
Yeah, so one thing is it's either like I'm getting really nervous, like when she's fighting someone, or
no, that you were talking about the idea of
fear.
like you wanted to like No, you wanted to mold your child in some ways.
Yeah,
like,
okay,
okay, there you go.
yeah.
Go ahead.
So I was actually, we were talking.
How do we influence our children to be
Yeah.
us exactly?
Yeah.
The best us.
I want
that
my
is.
daughter. Yeah, I know what I want for my daughter, right? And so
No, check it. I want to get to how do you mold your children to be you, essentially? And then you said best, but let's go to you.
Yeah.
Just be you, and then they'll watch you, and they'll do all this shit, and they'll
Mimicking.
show you all those things. You're like, oh fuck, she learned that from me.
Yeah.
Just be you.
It's a good being a parent's a good personal development.
Yeah, because when you're
course.
conscious, then you're consciously you, and then you consciously step into the dad that you want to be.
Yeah.
So when your child's watching you, you know that they're learning all that good shit. I wish it was that easy,
Right.
but like you're conscious
Constant
of it.
performance
doesn't-
art, right?
Yeah.
So I have a 4-year-old, and I'll talk to you about this, and just let me know your thoughts on
Yeah,
this,
for
because
sure,
I feel
man.
like it's a little. Maybe I'm like a little bit on the. Maybe this belief is a little bit on the unhealthy side, and some might see it this way, but I don't know. I'll get your feedback on it. So, I have a 4-year-old daughter, and she challenges us a lot, right? Me and my wife, and she'll say no to us, and so I'm really good at like kind of listening to her, giving her space. My wife is really good at it too. My wife's a little more short-tempered than I am, so sometimes she'll just be like, just do it. Like, she'll kind of get over it, right? And I'll have a little more empathy and more sort of space. And also my wife, they're together like a lot more than me, so I have more patience built in because I didn't see her as much as my wife did that day. But anyway, there was a moment I remember. I think we were like asking her to brush her teeth, and I was like, come on, let's brush our teeth. She's like, no, I don't want to. I was like, well, I'm going to go. Like, if you want to come with me, giving her options, doing the right healthy thing as a parent. And she kind of caught on. She's like, okay, you go. And so I was like, all right, it didn't work, So I'm like, all right. And so I brushed my teeth. And then later on, she's like, Dad, can you come brush your teeth with me? I was like, hey, I gave you an option. You chose, Yeah. She's like, but Dad. I'm like, no, Mama, go. Like, I know you're sad. And I'm talking her through it. Then at some point, I'm like, Mia, go brush your teeth. And my voice changed. And I was reflecting on that. I was like, man, do I like that? Like, do I like that I do that? Because, listening to just other things about parents, it's like you're using fear at that point to kind of create this behavior. So I was telling Jesse, I was like, you know what? I'm okay with that. Like, I'm kind of in a way, like, I'm okay with using, this might sound bad, but using fear sometimes, and not because I want her to be scared of me, but because I want her to respect kind of what I'm asking her to do. And especially in this in the context of like, we've tried a lot of times, we've tried all these different methods, and at some point it's like I'm gonna use my tone of voice to get her to do this task, right? So there's two sides of me of like, part of me is like, okay, like how long is that going to work for? And then the second side of me is like, well, this might be a good thing. She might learn to respect you as a parent and what you have to say, or when you're serious, right? Versus when you're not.
I mean,
So
that's
what are your
important.
thoughts on that? Yeah.
I mean, we'll unpack it. We'll unpack it. Okay, so you invited her to brush her teeth with you. How old is she?
She's 4.
She's 4.
Yeah.
Okay. Remember, she's a 4-year-old, man.
Yeah,
She's a
yeah.
4-year-old.
Yeah.
Just remember that.
Yeah.
That's a key piece right here,
Yeah,
right? She's
yeah.
4, not 14.
She's not 15. Yeah.
Yeah. So she's 4. You invited her to go brush her teeth, and
Yeah.
for whatever reason, she didn't join you.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
How do I feel about that? I felt like I was trying to kind of use a technique to have her come with me, and I was trying to meet her where she was at. So I felt a little annoyed that she didn't buy into it. Yeah.
So when you were trying to make effort and consciously show up as a parent, like, fuck yeah, I'm gonna try these methods, and hell yeah, I'm gonna got this stuff. I just watched this YouTube video, I'm gonna get this right. And then she's like, meh. How do you feel about that? You're like, fuck, annoyed, right?
Yeah, annoyed. Yeah.
Okay. So what we can look at, I don't know how much you want to get into, but somatically you're experiencing
Let's do
stuff,
this.
right?
Let's go.
Somatically you're experiencing stuff in your body. What does it feel like, right? Maybe you can even get back there if you're just thinking about it. But you can feel the tension. You can feel the tightness. You can feel the fucking tightness in your forehead. You can literally say, I'm annoyed. And that's when she comes out and goes, okay, Daddy, brush your teeth with me. And be like, I already fucking told you. You're not saying that, but you're thinking it. And what comes out is, go brush your teeth.
Yeah.
And then this
I'll stop you there because I don't. That wasn't my experience. It wasn't like I'm annoyed, so I'm
okay.
But to me, and this is where I'm wondering how healthy this is like, to me, I stuck to the principle of like, hey, like I gave you the option.
All right,
we talked about the option, and you didn't choose that option. And the option was, maybe I didn't explain it clearly, is we brush our teeth together, or you do it by
Okay,
yourself. And so like I wanted to stick to that option, and I didn't want to give her what she wanted.
Yeah, you
when
wanted to
she
follow
wanted
through
it.
because that's what the parent
Yeah.
coaches say, right?
Yeah,
Follow
yeah.
through. Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
and then at the end of it, when the power struggle happened, that's when you raised your voice like,
Yeah.
"Go brush your teeth," because I'm not gonna go brush your teeth with you because I've already said
Yeah.
that this is how it was
And
gonna
I
be.
felt the alternative was going to be she just wasn't going to brush her teeth
Okay,
that
all right.
day. And so
Okay.
I'd rather you brush your teeth than not. And so
Yeah.
I'm going to use my voice to win.
Okay. Yeah, so that's another thing. You realize she's 4 years old,
Yeah,
and you're in
yeah.
this power struggle with
Yeah.
the 4-year-old, right? And you might be feeling those feelings,
Yeah.
and you might be convincing yourself it's about the principle.
Yeah.
Maybe.
That's exactly what I was doing. Yeah.
Right. Maybe. I don't
Yeah.
know. But it's okay to have you're a parent and you want a parent. You're an expert of your child, right?
Yeah.
Whatever you feel is necessary, you will do. I will support you through understanding why we do it.
Yeah.
And then you unpack it and you go, what happened that night? And you reflect. She went to bed kind of sad. That sucks. Imagine if she would have been like, brush your teeth with me, Daddy. I'm like, okay, cool. And you brush your teeth with her. Brush it.
Would've had a good
Hey, I
experience.
mentioned like next time, I'm trying this new thing. We should brush our teeth together and talk to her because I don't think for a 4-year-old she's comprehending you when you say
Yeah.
those types of things.
Right.
She's at a developmental stage where she's gonna hear you and be like, I'm gonna do this.
She'll forget. or
Yeah,
she'll say
and
that,
that's okay. And then we have times where you can, if there's a rupture, right? If like maybe you feel dysregulated because you're annoyed, and then you start rationalizing, but okay, I have to stick to it. And then you start thinking about the parenting strategy, like I got to do it correctly, so
Yeah.
I can't give in, or she'll think I'm a pushover.
Yeah.
And then that might bring you even back to your own childhood,
Yeah.
where you had maybe this upbringing of like it has to be, you have to do what I say as
Yeah.
my parent, your parent. I'm a parent. I tell you to do it, you do it,
Yeah.
or else. And it sounds like you're trying to pull away from that parenting strategy of or else, but at the same time you value the respect,
Yeah.
but not
Yeah.
necessarily the fear. But the
Right,
fear,
yeah.
maybe the way you perceive it growing up, maybe that was something that was in your
Oh,
childhood.
totally was.
Right?
Yeah. Hell yeah.
So to let that go, we have to understand where it comes from.
Yeah.
And where it comes from is going to tell us like, all right, cool. When things like this happen, I can choose to show up differently.
Right. Yeah.
And that differently still could be holding your boundary, but it's holding your boundary in a way that's developmentally appropriate to your child's age,
Right.
and in a way that's going to see them validate their emotions and let them know that the boundary that you're walking them through has purpose.
Right.
Like sometimes these things are so fucking arbitrary, man. I'll fucking die on this hill for my 7-year-old trying to convince me
Right,
she
yeah.
wants to do it this way, and I'm like, no, it's this way. And I'm like, she's 7 years old.
Right. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. No, yeah, because I think like if you're not careful, like you said, how stuck are you on that hill, right? And I think like luckily we have some like I have my wife's a preschool teacher. Like we have some awareness around like okay, like don't push to a point where like you're just making her really scared of you, or you're kind of getting into this really like scary territory. But it's good to know that like it's not about like this is the way you should do it as a parent. It's more like just understand the reasons why you're doing, why you're responding, why you're saying certain things,
and then you make your informed decision based on your core values, right? Like everyone has different lived experience, and the family that you come from is gonna contribute to your culture, contribute to how you show up, and it's your journey on how to figure out how to be that parent, and that's something that's unique to every parent.
Right. Yeah. So you have a support group, right, that you're doing? Can you tell us a little
Yeah.
bit
So
about it?
I launched a Parenting AF support group on the first Wednesday of every month at 6:30 Pacific Standard Time. It's a great group of cycle breakers. I had the biggest turnout last week, which was fucking amazing. 15 parents showed up. They're finding me through Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. The content I put out speaks to parents that are in this shit. They're struggling, but they want to make that change and become cycle breakers. So in the parenting group, we get to meet other cycle breakers. We get to see that we're not the only parents in this struggle, and we get to share our successes, share our struggles, and it's something that has been really awesome. So that one is the first Wednesday of every month at 6:30 Pacific Standard Time. And then I also have a fatherhood AF support group. So that one I opened up specifically for men. I make content that's very father specific. I am a father, so that's my lived experience, obviously. And that one is really awesome too, because I have a good group of guys that show up. And these men are trying to find spaces where they can open up and be vulnerable and talk about the struggles that they might be experiencing, but don't have anyone else to talk about, right? And we kind of keep it through a parenting lens and a fatherhood lens. I support the parents by sharing some reflective strategies for both groups. And, we do some kind of reflective prompts, and we do a little bit of discussion. And if we have time, I sometimes will, coach a parent through a situation just like I did with you, right? So that we get that experience of, hey, we got to remember that these experiences we have, we're going to make mistakes, but we can learn from them, and we got to give ourselves grace and move on. So awesome. These parent groups I do, first Wednesday of every month, 6:30 Pacific Standard Time is for the parents, and then for the fatherhood one, it's the third Wednesday of every month, 6:30 Pacific Standard Time. And you guys, listeners out there, you're free to check it out. You can click my
we'll put your Instagram
you guys got all that
bio.
Stuff, right? Yeah, for sure. And you can click and sign up, and it's a good group of parents, man. I think they're showing up and realizing it's not like any other parent support group they've ever been to. I used to host parent support groups in a nonprofit, and it was definitely not like the one that I host now.
You're not doing a random check-in. And
it's
checking boxes. Dude,
it's real, man.
Yeah, that's awesome. You do have some great content too,
Thank
people
you.
will connect with that as well. Do you want something? I have a question, but
no, go for it.
One of the things I follow your account. We follow each other. I saw that you were talking this week about repairs.
Yes.
And it really, that topic resonates with me because when I'm helping families with their kids, or talking to like a dad who's having issues with their kid, or even in my own experiences with talking through the challenges that our daughter gives us at times, I'm like, I think the repair, I feel like I value it the most out of any interaction a parent can have. Like I try to because a lot of parents come in, they feel real guilty about the way they showed up or the way they didn't show up, right? Yep. And I mean, gosh, it's so hard because if you've ever played sports or like performed, like, you're never gonna execute perfectly. You're gonna fuck up a play, you're gonna fuck up a pass. I play soccer, you're gonna fuck up a shot. Same with parenting, you're gonna react, you're gonna respond. Your internal psyche's gonna get in the way of a perfect response. And so I try to help people move away from just the punishing yourself because of doing that. And I really love that you had this emphasis on repair, because I feel like that is really where parents can make a lot of growth if they can not worry so much about the misstep, but more about like what you do afterwards. And I don't know what thoughts you have on that, but
yeah, definitely. As far as a parent, man, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to fuck up. Especially now with all the awareness that people have, with the resources, you can go on Instagram and follow all these awesome parent coaches that make parenting look all easy. And you're like, oh, I do it. You have all these tips, right? But we're still going to fuck up. Like, we're still going to make mistakes. And that's a normal thing that we learn from, right? And I talk about rupture and repair. So there's the ruptures. Like, it could be something as simple as my daughter wants something and I'm frustrated for some other reason, maybe work or something, and she's like, daddy, and I'm like, okay, and then I'm like, okay, one second, and then she's like, daddy, I'm like, okay, yes, okay, and like I say something where it's a little aggressive, not necessarily because I want to hurt her feelings, but I'm up in my head and I look at her and I can see, ouch. And then in that moment I can be like brushing it off, or I can be like, oh man, I can take ownership of what I did and regulate myself and then come back and repair it. That might not happen and like, oh, I'm so sorry I did that. Like, it's more of like really regulating your own nervous system before you try to make this repair with your child. And in that, when you regulate your own nervous system, you're going to take yourself out of that spiral. The spiral is that shame of like, oh, I made a mistake, and you just get stuck. And how are you going to repair something when you're stuck in the shame spiral? Like, your body's not in a space to co-regulate with your child that you need to do that co-regulation with to make that repair. So a process that I coach parents through is when you make that rupture, whatever it is, it could be a 3-year-old getting a cookie, them flipping out, then you saying whatever, and then could be a 3-year-old, could be a 13-year-old. It's the same concept. You have to acknowledge how you feel and model it, because you're modeling emotional awareness and emotional communicating with your emotions being something that's not foreign to do, not taboo, right? I grew up in a place we don't talk about our emotions. Boys don't cry. I'm too sensitive. They would tell me this shit. So you're modeling it. So you, like, for that example, I used something as simple as maybe I was like short with my daughter. I noticed it hurt her feelings because she wanted to show me a painting of a unicorn. I'm like, oh, it's like a horror. It's like a bad movie moment. How I'm just working. I work so damn hard.
I'm trying to upload this video on Instagram.
She's over there with the little unicorn. It didn't happen, but for something like that, that for a child is a big rupture. And for me in my head, that might not seem a lot until I slow down. And then when I slow down and then I see it, then I can spiral. Oh, fuck, I'm a horrible dad. She was just trying to show me this cool picture. But like, in that spiral, I don't do that anymore. And I did it for years. I stop myself. And then I start to think, how can I show her that I'm aware of what I did was not okay, and own up to it, and tell my 7-year-old. Take a deep breath. I calm okay, cool. Am I regulated? Shit. Am I not spiraling, beating myself up over because I messed up? Okay, cool. I give myself grace. I forgive myself quickly. And for me, something I do, because I like sitting on the floor, is I just will sit on the floor sometimes. I'll just be like, I'll sit on the floor. I'll put it away like, you know what? I apologize. I raised my voice at you.
How old your daughter?
Well, she's 7. So,
okay.
You can do this at an age-appropriate level. I apologize, I raised my voice at you. I know when you were coming to show me your drawing, you wanted my attention. I was not paying attention to you because I was feeling stressed from work. That has nothing to do with you. And I want to let you know that I understand that your feelings may be hurt. How are you feeling? I was just trying to show you this drawing. I see that drawing means a lot to you. And Daddy is sorry that I wasn't able to see that the first time. How do you think we can work through this? How can we? And this is like time, man. This is... Who the fuck talks to kids like this? My parents did. Did not actually. Like, it was just like, I'll give you something to fucking cry about. Right? So this is the work. Because you have to literally humble yourself, forgive yourself, and say, I'm okay admitting to my 7-year-old that I'm going to show up different. And guess what? This only works if you can continue to stay committed to it. Because you are not going to keep lying to your kid. I'm going to show up better. Next time Daddy's going to work harder. You're not going to just keep lying to your kid. You're going to fucking do that because you're committed to it. And these ruptures that happen can be repaired. And with this repair, the bond gets closer. The trust gets closer. And then through the trust, that's when your kid is going to, understand that, like, Dad's there for me, not necessarily like, and then when I'm on my phone or when I'm busy with something and she's getting at me, I can literally say my connection with my daughter in this moment to see her is way more important than meeting my post this reel by noon, because that's just my weird quirk that I like to do, right?
Yeah, I love that. I get more excited too. Like, for me, it's the rupture is important, but like, I always look at things like how is she gonna behave and interact with me 10 years down the road? And I'm like, if I can model this sort of like come back and I fucked up and like I recognize that and I'm so sorry, baby. Like, damn, like I get excited about her being able to model that. Like, and be able to recognize mistakes that she makes and come back and be courageous enough to confront them. And I don't know. I think about that. I'm like, we're gonna make our life a little easier down the road. Like,
breaking cycles, man.
Apologize. Right?
Breaking cycles. Cycles are, sometimes it's fucking a crazy abusive family. Sometimes it's just little kind of coping mechanisms that were developed, right? So it's breaking cycles, showing up differently than your parents showed up. Not necessarily saying your parents did a horrible job, but showing up differently. There could be a different way to do it that's more aligned to how you want to show up versus just saying, this is how it is. This is how I was raised. This is what I'm going to do. And now, there's all kinds of studies and all kinds of books that can show you different ways. It's just a matter of finding what works for you based on what you feel is right for your family, your children. And yeah, man, that's cool that you take that time to reflect, because you have this I'm sure you have this way of that you grew up, right? Yeah. And you know that there's a lot of benefits. There's a lot of probably strong cultural things you want to keep and hold on to. Yeah. And there's probably things that you're like, I don't know if I like that, right? Yeah. And then finding that balance that's the work that parents do. And when they start to do this work, it's like, okay, how do I find the balance? Because it can swing one way or the other, right? Yeah. Like, I want to respect my kid. Next thing you know, they're trying to hold the boundary, and you're like, this little motherfucker, like.
Do you think, like, I know there's probably parents out there who, because I can relate with this, like, there's a fear of, like, attending too much, meeting the needs too much, like that could lead to, like, weakness, or, like, could lead to, I don't know, this is going to sound bad, but a wimpy kid, right? Mm-hmm. Like, is there growing up the way you did, is there like an internal fear of that still, like, you have to work through, or like, are you like,
I was raised with tough love, I think, so that was kind of maybe the premise of like, no, the world's a hard place, you gotta fucking just get through it. And it didn't do me well until I was like, oh shit, this has really made me pick some pretty shitty options in life, because it was from a place of fear, and it limited, I think, my just what I thought I was capable of. And I think there's a place where we can do that in a place of like kind of expansion, rather. Like, we're not trying to restrict someone with fear, but we're trying to say what's possible, what's beyond what I don't know, and I'm gonna be okay moving forward without that fear that's gonna hold me back and never see what's out there, what's different, right? Yeah,
I love that, man, because I think like that's something I think that I see a lot of parents battle. I'll say like myself, like there's sometimes I feel like myself saying like, man, like, you know, I don't want to like make her too soft or too like, you know, like I want her to be able to fight things through, or to sometimes I'm like, you know, don't cry right now, like, you know. And so it's that sort of internal convincing myself, buying into these new models that are like, you know what, attend to these needs. And I do it in therapy all the time. It's how my clients grow. It's like, you know what I mean? And it's but sometimes like I forget that's like, okay, like that model works.
Yeah,
like,
it's,
we can use it in this with your child too.
Yeah, it's like you don't have to use tough love to like beat the toughness into a kid. You don't have to beat anything into a kid. You can show them resiliency. You can show them what it is to embody confidence, so that they have the confidence to be in places that are going to be good fits for them. And like many of us in my generation, we didn't know what boundaries were. Like, we got stuck in shitty ass jobs that took advantage of us, and relationships and friendships, and what I want to do is I want to relearn all that shit as a 40-year-old stepping into this new way of being. Like, okay, how do I show my daughter this? And it's not based on like trying to have a tough love approach, but it's like, I'm so loving that you can literally expand into anything. It's like and it sounds like silly to tell a kid like, you can be anything. And I remember when they told me like, what do you want to be? You know, like an astronaut and shit like that, but not necessarily like this grandiose thing. Just, you can literally be anything. Like, if you want to be a silly ass kid right now that's jumping on the couch, for me, that's okay. Some parents might not like that. If you want to be like a person that's like a little kid that's creating this whole fairy tale and being really loud and boisterous, and it might make me feel like, oh, I'm tired. Like, no, you do you, and I'm going to show up for you, because I know these are the moments where you're building that confidence. And if I shut you down right now, then I'm going to have to do something you're going to have to find that confidence. And I don't think trying to give her a tough life right now is going to set her up for handling a tough life. What it's going to do is just going to make her feel comfortable in shitty situations. And she's going to just learn that that's the way it is, right? That's the way I grew up. Grew up in poverty, grew up through struggles. So my life was struggles until I was like, wait a minute, there's more? There's like, I can do different? And that was the work that led me to Reflective AF. It's I can do different, and I want to show parents that they can too.
I think you mentioned that concept of tough love. It's just such an outdated like thing. I feel like the idea is just drop the tough and let's just go with the love. And the love within strength, I think, is like, strength to me now is sure like sending a message of like, you're strong, you're powerful, you can do anything you want. I say that often to people. Like, I joke like, you can do anything right now. If you want to change anything right now, I don't know, like maybe with your felony record if you can become the president, but like, I'm like, but don't believe in yourself and like give yourself some love, because a lot of kids like us grew up with not having that love, and we've been seeking that in unhealthy ways for so many years. So like the idea of like tough love, like I'm gonna straighten you out, like this is how I'm gonna show my love, I'm just like, it's just defeating.
Yeah, man, I experienced childhood through the 90s, right? So I got sent to like dare camps where cops screamed in your face and shit and scared you, scared straight. I've been to like programs like that as a kid. And even like when I was in my undergrad, I did sociology shit. Like, I wrote papers on those programs because I was always interested. And like at that time, I didn't have the understanding I have now. But like, that was something that I thought was legit. Like, I was like, oh, look, I'm not dead or in jail. It worked, right? It worked. No, dude, I was hurting the whole time. You know, I was like hiding the depression, hiding the anxiety, hiding the suicidal ideations. So that fucking approach does not work. And it's way outdated. And my mom read a book in the 80s, and it literally can be fucking a class action lawsuit should be fucking against that old dude who wrote that book, man. He's probably dead. But anyways, tough love, nah, it's just bullshit, dude.
Yeah, I think like, you know, the tough love, the conditional love, like it can be worked on in everyday interactions, but you know, I think it's really hard as a parent to work on it when your expectations of what you had for your children sort of like are starting to get challenged as they grow up, right? And I'm thinking about like whether your kids, you know, maybe they're starting to identify as like homosexual, and it's something that's like hard for you to accept because you didn't grow up with like that being accepted in your household, or maybe your kid doesn't want to go to college and you value school, right? And so it's like in these moments where kind of goes back to what you said earlier, what hill do you want to die on? Like, I think that's really when some of these skills, along with everyday interactions, but some of these skills and those can really help someone navigate those really complex situations. Like, you know, like really uncomfortable situations that challenge like personal beliefs, personal values. I feel like as a parent, you are molding your child, even if, you know, you're being you're being child led in your parenting, you're still molding them in some way. You're teaching them your values. And if they go against them, or if they create once they go their own way, like that's hard as a parent to let go of. You know?
It's the expectations of what you want your children to be, right? And you know, I struggle with that because my daughter has her personality, and sometimes things that she does make me feel a certain way, and it's not her, it's me.
Yes.
And I am very like specific with the wording, like she's not triggering me, it's her behaviors that are triggering experiences that I'm holding on to, because the fear of like something as simple as like she might do something that reminds me, if I did that as a child, I would have got like beat. So when she does it, there's tension. But I know now that the feeling, because I've connected the dots. So it's like you have to be able to accept your child where they're at all parts of their, you know, of their journey, of their childhood, of everything. And unfortunately, a lot of, you know, my generation, parents didn't have this information, you know, and if they did, it, you know, I don't know, man. Maybe they don't not all fucked up as the rest of us. I don't know, man. But
a lot of the times, though, like my parents, you know, they're from Mexico, and like they came to this country like trying to survive. They're in survival mode. Like they had to even have the capacity to learn some of this stuff I can't even fathom, right? Like them like going to a child education class, or, you know, let's go to a baby preparation class when they're just like working their minimum wage job at Burger King, like trying to survive.
Yeah,
you know?
it's not accessible, and it wasn't accessible. And there's a lot of like grief I have that I wasn't able to experience certain things in my childhood, or have the love that I yearned for so deeply. And I recognize that it makes sense why my mom and my parents did what they did. And that has been able to help me on my healing journey, partly because of my understanding of like, there is reasons why like the tough love approach kind of made me feel a certain way, disconnected from my feelings, and that came up as anger, and I had so much anger towards my parents. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. And then you know, unpacking their trauma and going like, okay. And I'm very lucky where I've had the opportunity to like really repair my relationship with my mom, and she's on her own healing journey, and we meditate together and do breath work. She's even smoked weed with me, like we're chill, and she gets it. She's like biggest fan of my content, so always putting little emojis on all my videos, so it's really cool, right? And I recognize that I still yearn for all the stuff that I never got from her. And that's okay. And I'm not going to let that hurt affect my daughter. And I have to be aware of it. I'm not going to let those fucking traumas affect my daughter, because that's my thing I need to work through and forgive myself, learn to love myself, and grieve my childhood. And then know I can create a childhood that's more loving, full of grace, full of acceptance, no critical bullshit, like just no violence, no like, and I know I can show up like that for my daughter. And the work to get there is the work I do every day, is the intentionally waking up every morning and, you know, doing my affirmations, doing all the shit the therapists have told me to do for 15 fucking years. I started doing it, and then it started working. So you should just listen to this guy. Do what he fucking tells you to do. It works, dude. It fucking works, man. But like, I want to just reiterate, like just like I want to really highlight that it's not doing the work up here. It's doing the work from here. And it took me a lot of years to figure that out, but I show up, and now I love to do this work because I know the outcome is me being a better father for my daughter, and my connection with my daughter being stronger. You know, so there's a lot of transitions in my life where I'm transitioning into a new career, recently divorced, all this stuff. So I have to truly show up the best father every single day, because my daughter is going through the same shit, and she's only 7. So I'm not going to be losing my shit. And in order to not lose my shit, I'm not just going to say I'm not going to lose my shit. I'm going to do the fucking work that it takes to not lose my shit. And I do it daily, and now it's not as hard as it used to be. It's it's actually easy. But that's because, you know, tough love made me, I guess, fucking really intense. And now I just put it towards loving my daughter and loving myself, you know?
That's amazing, man. Yeah. Any other questions you got?
I mean, I don't know how much time
I
we
could
got
talk
left.
about this for
Yeah,
hours. So
Okay,
we got a few minutes left here.
I guess one thing I would say, is there like one misconception that you see with dads with daughters? Like, I don't know, just throughout your experience, like the whole. That's kind of a broad question, but I don't know if you can take it anywhere and go with that. Like, throughout just working with so many dads, and I mean, my daughter's so young; she's
some
under 2
free
years
advice,
old.
dude.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I don't.
You got daughters too, right, Manny?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're all-
I got two
Yeah, we all
daughters.
got girls
Girl
here,
dads.
Yeah, man,
right?
girl
So
dads,
this is
dude.
where we could really vibe. But like
Yeah.
for me, I was thinking about the idea of like when I'm driving here, like what do I want my daughter to be like? And right now it's just happy, right? Like I'm just kind of like there's not this pressure. I've told you like there's some fears of like I'm overprotective, like I'm watching her like a fucking hawk left and right. But like I'm just scared of the world around her, what it's gonna do to her at some point in time, which I can't always protect her from, right? But like, what is a misconception that really like trip up dads early in maybe fatherhood, or even like later, is what you've seen?
I think this is, I've worked with parents for so long, and I've worked with dads, I've worked with parents and newborns, and I think about my own experience as a father when my daughter's mother gave birth, and I remember like the moment like I held her for the first time, I had women around me telling me how to hold my daughter, which was cool because I was scared. I thought I was going to break her, but there was a nurse, it was my mom, it was, all these women around me telling me how to hold my daughter. And I started thinking and reflecting back on how that is the case for most men who are there for the birth of their child. And immediately we're told that we need information on how to take care of our own child. I guarantee you no man is going to pick up a baby by the head like a fucking softball and be like, is this how I hold my kid? I guarantee you that's not going to happen. Yeah. So I know this is an experience not just in the labor, but it's like when you're a father with the kid, people are giving you advice like you must do it this way, and then we kind of step back and go, okay, tell us, please. I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah. I guarantee you're gonna be okay. Yeah. Let's just tap into feeling what you feel as a parent and your child needs. There might be some extreme cases where maybe we have no examples of what a responsible adult is with a child. That there are like some of those cases. But for the most part, if you're being a conscious father and you're asking this question, I have a daughter and I'm not sure how I'm feeling right now. Like I feel like I'm messing up. If you're asking these questions, then you have the capacity to start reflecting back in the feelings that you feel with the constriction of like how do I go intervene with this other kid that's playing with her on the playground? Do I make sure she's climbing this right? It's that questioning our own intuitive ability to be fathers, and it's really difficult for a man to go, but I don't know. It's for a man to fathom that they have it within themselves to know how to show up as a parent. It's hard because of the roles that we've accepted. Yeah. You might have a caregiver like a mom at home that's like when you get home, you throw the whole routine off because they're just like, I was just doing this and you came in with this energy, and then all of a sudden, I fucked it up. Yeah. But fathers offer something so unique that mothers can offer, and it's not anti-mothers. It's just they offer different ways to connect. Yeah. So I want fathers to know if they lean into their dadness, they'll be great dads, especially with little girls. Like you want to be the man that you're going to want your daughter to see as an example of a man. Yeah. And when you work towards that, you have to identify your core values, because first people don't, what are core values? Well, you have to learn, like when every moment in your life you want to show up with intention, and my intention is lead with love. That's my intention from living a whole fucking life of fighting and chaos and trauma. Like, fuck that, dude. I'm done with it. I'm leading with love. So when I show up with my kid, I don't know what I'm doing, what would love do? Yeah. That's awesome. Not trip out that she wants to stay at the park for 5 more minutes and there's this arbitrary rule that I said, and not be like, oh, now she's going to think I'm a pushover, because I'm not, because every time she needs me, I show up for her. And when I do need to have consistent boundaries, I will. But sometimes staying at the park for an extra 5 minutes because she's laughing, and then the moment I'm like, time to go, and I'm like, you know what? She's having fun and she doesn't have concept of time, and I'm going to try to see if we can connect in this moment, and we'll get through it. So any message I can have to dads is you're doing a fucking good job if you're asking these questions.
It's awesome.
I fucking love that. I think a big misconception for dads is that there's no changing tables in their bathrooms, right? And even when there are no changing tables, that you can't change your daughter in the bathroom. Like, you just Gotta figure it out. Put it on your lap.
Dude. You haven't seen the little. You haven't seen the little when you gotta take a shit. Those little fucking like free ride seats. Have you seen those?
No.
Holy shit! I've seen them before. Like I haven't used them, but like there's these little toddler chairs. You like pull them off and you put your kid on it and you buckle them in. And then the men's room because they know like men go like I have my toddler. I gotta take a shit. You know.
I love that.
And it's like let me just put you in here and watch daddy take a shit. Yeah. You know, it's like
great.
dude. But yeah, men's changing tables. There are changing tables. Like I don't think I've been in a bathroom that doesn't have one for a while.
Yeah, right. That's the second time we talk about shit in this podcast.
Yeah, dude.
I love it. We're starting a trend here.
Hell yeah, man. It's also appeals to 4-year-olds. 4-year-olds love poop. 7-year-olds too. Like yeah, fucking anything with poop, they're laughing.
46-year-old men love talking about poop,
exactly.
Right?
It's a
talk about you shitting in a bag in Los
I
Angeles
did
last
not
week.
shit in a bag in Los Angeles. I did not have
That's the only way to shit in Los Angeles.
Kind of, yeah. It seems like
if you gotta take a shit, you fucking try to find a bathroom. Nah, it's not happening, man.
No.
You just shit next to the shit on the sidewalk already.
Ridiculous.
Shit in a bag.
Hey, thank you, Alex, for coming out.
Yeah, man, for sure,
This
dude.
was awesome.
Thank you,
I
guys.
feel like
Thanks,
I could
dude.
talk about this like for 3
Yeah,
hours.
well, I'll come back another time.
Yeah, we'll
do
get you
part
back
two.
on,
We'll do
man,
part
because there's a
two.
lot of stuff we could most definitely dive into. So.
I'll come back and apply some of this and
Yeah,
like,
man,
see where
hit me
else
up.
I fuck
Yeah.
up, and I'll ask for advice
I
again.
mean, your fuck ups are lessons, dude. If you just forgive yourself quickly, they're actually pretty good lessons, dude.
Exactly.
Little Rob, hope you're listening.
Yeah, little Rob, check in, man. Yeah.
Thanks again.
Big fans.
Yeah.